We're live.
And we're live. What's going on, guys? Happy Friday. Welcome to the RotoPros pre-lock DFS show with your hosts, Chris Durrell and myself, Josh Kronfeld. Happy to be here. And we're ready to break down. We have the DraftKings. It's the championship. It's not the DK championship, but it's some $3,000 championship with a 300K payout. So it's a one of the last big Friday slates of the season, I would say. Exciting.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a good weekend to get in. We got some awesome pitching. I mean, last night went ahead and said that it was probably one of the worst slates of the year, and we ended up crushing it again anyway. So, good slate, bad slate, doesn't matter how it looks. We're ready to crush it every night.
Exactly. So let's get right back up there tonight. Who are you? With that being said, oh, okay. I guess just 1 second as well. It is kind of a special occasion here to some extent. We did just relaunch our website. We kind of went back to our roots a little bit with a simplified Squarespace version. We used to be DF Sports Gods a long time ago, and kind of transitioned into RotoPros, and kind of it's an exciting day for us. We're very happy to be back on our old website, and just kind of focusing on the community. We were new at this in the beginning, and we learned a lot along the way, and now we're getting back to the community that matters the most here. To us at RotoPros, there's a lot of fantasy sites out there. There's a lot of advice sites and stuff, but we really like to highlight the community aspect on RotoPros to show why we're different. So we're running a 2-week free promotion right now. So check us out, rotopros.com, guys. Come join the family. Not much more ado. Let's go, Chris. Who we liking to pitch today?
Yeah, so after last night and having kind of gritting our teeth and going with Clay Buchholz as the top pitcher tonight, where it's like Christmas around here right now. We got two elite options in my opinion tonight. You got Max Scherzer going up against Miami. DraftKings is really starting to soften up on their elite pitching tier. He's down to 12.6, which is his cheapest price since back in April. Like 22 starts ago or something like that. And he's like a minus 400 favorite right now. Huge favorite over Miami. I mean, Miami's been bottom 3 in the league when it comes to runs scored for the season. When it comes to second half, they don't strike out a ton, but it's a little bit of one, half a dozen of one, whatever the other, with Miami, because they lost Justin Bour, who was their second highest strikeout guy, but he had a lot of power as well. So I think it's kind of a little bit of an upgrade for him. He had some trouble with them earlier in the season, but he dominated them in his last start, and he's just been absolutely dominant. He's coming off a start against the Cubs in Chicago, where he went 7 innings, give up 3 hits, no earned runs with 11 strikeouts. So he's got a 12K per 9 and like a 16.8% swinging strike rate. So he's definitely number 1 for me tonight on both slates. If you're trying, I think you can go 2 ways in cash. You can also go Carlos Carrasco, a little bit of a discount, $1,400 on DraftKings and $1,200 on FanDuel. And what I've been liking about him quite a bit is that he has been, like, since the All-Star break, he has only allowed 6 earned runs in those starts, and he has 8 or more strikeouts in each one of those starts. So he's been red hot too. He's a huge favorite, like minus 400. He gets an awesome matchup versus Baltimore. Now, Baltimore's been good since the All-Star break. I think it's a little overblown. It's because they did lose their best hitters, Manny Machado and Jonathan Schoop. So, but which one of those two are you kind of looking at on the DraftKings side of things for yourself?
It's hard to argue with Max being number 1. I think some people may be turned off by his earlier performance against them, where I think he only had 2 or 3 strikeouts and really wasn't his best self. But I think, like you said, and it is kind of a double-edged sword with Justin Bour's strikeout rate being so high, but overall their team is less talented now, in my opinion, offensively. So it's a little bit of a bump to Max, and that's a guy who doesn't really need any sort of bumps to be worth your time. So I agree with you. You can get away with either one for cash. Are you going to have any Charlie Morton for GPP, or are you looking farther down, people like Robbie Ray for chance?
Well, for DraftKings lineups, I think it makes sense going to Robbie Ray. If his price was any higher, I probably would just keep him in the GPP side of things. But being that he's in that mid 7K range on DraftKings, 8,300 on FanDuel,
great park, obviously. Too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's got huge upside. He's almost got a 12K per nine and 31% K rate. So the upside's big. So if he can limit his walks, and that's his biggest issue this year, he's walking just over 4.5 per nine. If he can limit that, I really think he can keep a San Diego team. I mean, San Diego's slightly better against lefties, but don't kid ourselves. San Diego's one of the worst lineups. We just talked about two of them, Miami and Baltimore. San Diego's right there, and teams that you want to target with pitching. Doesn't matter if it's lefties or righties. So I think overall in my model, he's fifth overall in my model, and that doesn't count Price. If it counted Price, he'd probably be up there in the 3 range behind Scherzer and Carrasco. I'm not really looking at Morton. Oakland's just been pretty much a very dominant team. They don't strike out a whole bunch. They're really pushing for that division lead too. So I think I'm going to probably avoid Charlie Morton. He does have a good K upside as well at 30% K rate. Same with Flaherty. He's got that 30% K rate there too. But that Milwaukee lineup's also dangerous. So I would reserve those two for GPP. I think they're both going to be fairly low owned because everyone's going to be on Scherzer and Carrasco tonight.
Yeah, and what do you think about? I mean, obviously Jack Flaherty had a great start last time he went out against Milwaukee, but it's a very different Milwaukee lineup. So I think his price is too high for me tonight. So I'll probably be, I would just rather pay down for Robbie Ray or pay up for someone like Carrasco. But I will be honest with you. I'll be on some mid-tier guys tonight. I kind of like Lance Lynn. I don't want to make it seem like it's a homer in me, because I'm a big Yankees fan, of course. But he's been unreal since we picked him up. I don't have this right in front of me. The numbers are crazy. But I like a little Lance Lynn tonight, and I like Lucchesi a little bit in GPP. Just kind of pivot off of Robbie Ray. Everyone will be on Robbie, and he tends to give up some home runs.
And that's what you want to do in GPP. Everyone's going after Robbie Ray in that same game, going and attacking the pitcher on the other side. He's a very talented pitcher. That makes a lot of sense. He's going to be probably half the ownership of Robbie Ray. One guy you didn't mention.
Jack Price, similar K upside in my opinion. I guess Lucchesi doesn't quite go as far into games as Robbie Ray usually does, but I don't think he's got when guys are seeing him for the first time, he's got one of those deliveries that's a little deceptive. So
he almost looks like it's almost like a Kershaw delivery, how he holds his hands way over his head like that. I like it. I think he watched him a lot as a kid. Yeah, you were talking about Lance Lynn since he came over to the Yankees there. He's only given up 1 earned run, and it looks like about 16 2/3 innings with like 23 strikeouts. So, yeah, he's been lights out. Going up against Toronto, has a lot of strikeout bats in their lineup, so I definitely think that makes sense as a mid-tier choice. Another guy that got traded, he's made 3 starts on a new team that I'm looking at in the mid-tier range, is Cole Hamels. Since he's gone to the Cubs, he's faced Kansas City, not a great offense. Pittsburgh, kind of a middling offense. And then Washington, they have a ton of upside. He's gone 18 innings in those 3 starts. He's only given up 2 earned runs, and he's had 9 strikeouts in 2 of those games. So those are definitely 2 guys with Lynn and Hamels in that mid-tier range. I think you can get a little bit lower ownership on. They make sense in GPPs for sure tonight.
And the last guy I'd like to mention is James Shields, Big Game James. KC sucks. They don't really have anyone other than Perez. That's being a little harsh, but they got rid of Musaka. That's one of their biggest home runs for that. And James Shields is very cheap tonight on DraftKings, but 6,300. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for about between 16 to 20 points, depending on whether he gets the win against the Kansas City lineup at home.
Right on. Well, that's kind of a nice little transition into the stacks, because that's the one place I disagree with you a little bit. I'm actually going to be going with Carrasco and Scherzer as my top 2. We're going to need some value stacks tonight. So one I'm looking at is Kansas City. They do have some value in their lineup. Merrifield, Gordon, Perez, Duda, that's their top 4. I also like Rizal Herrera hitting 5th. And the reason why, early in the season, James Shields' home run to fly ball rate was way down, but kind of going and looking at his last 4 starts overall, he's given up 3, 2, 1, and 2 home runs. So it looks like those home runs have started to come back, along with some walks. He's got 3, 3, and 4 walks in 3 of those 4 games. He's still going deep into games. He's not giving up a lot of runs, so a lot of them are solo home runs. But I think you can grab a couple value guys from Kansas City tonight that make sense against him. So I guess that's the one play that we're kind of on opposite sides with tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not building around him, but
right.
He's also been going against moderately tough matchups. Cleveland.
Yeah.
The way he pitched, he got about 7 innings against Kansas City, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, just a little value tonight. My projections have that him kind of way above everyone else value-wise. So we'll see if that's correct.
Right on.
But that's the point of this show. I like it when we disagree. It shows the viewers this isn't scripted or anything.
Yeah, we got different sides.
Game.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right, cool. So let's move over to the offensive stats. And guys, you can ask questions in the chat too. Feel free.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll get it all answered. I'm going to touch on weather at the end here, just seeing some updates come in a few spots, but we'll touch on that at the end. So my top offense tonight, I'm looking at the Indians. They're expensive, but they're definitely my number one when looking at implied runs. They're over 6 at the moment, I believe. And outside of a few good starts early in the season, David Hess has just been terrible. 31 earned runs over his last 29 2/3 innings for something like a 9 ERA in that time. Giving up 8 home runs in those 6 starts as well. And we all know the Indians' offense is powerful with Lindor, Brantley, and Ramirez hitting 1, 2, 3. And Yandy Diaz jumps in there, so that's a little bit of value to make it all work. And then another value play there that can really help is Melky Cabrera. His price is starting to come up because he's been playing well. Yonder Alonso, he's got power. He's more GPP. I wouldn't touch him in cash games. And then I hate that Greg Allen's hitting 9th. He's been one of my value plays I've been using a bit lately, trying to make things work. He made me some money the other night. Him and Melky Cabrera, went with them and won a few, like 5 or 6 100-mans on FanDuel. So, but hitting 9th, he's going to be like 1% owned, 2% owned. So I don't mind going with some 9 hitters sometimes when they're a good value on a team projected to get a ton of runs. So we've seen that happen before. He's got Lindor hitting behind him, so he gets on base. He can easily score some runs and make up his value in the low, in that 2K, 3K range on DraftKings. So can definitely make that work. And then after them, they won me some money last night. I'm going to go right back to them, is Minnesota against Matt Boyd.
Yeah.
He got Forsythe. They moved him all the way up to leadoff. He's been just crushing it since being traded to Minnesota after absolutely struggling with the Dodgers this season. So definitely looking at him. Boyd has been much worse on the road with a 5.60 ERA. It's something like a sub-3 at home, I believe. He hasn't given up a ton of home runs yet this year. 14 and 23 starts, like 8% home run to fly ball. But he's given up 46% fly balls with 37% hard contact. That home run to fly ball rate just is not sustainable with those outer numbers. So if you're looking to go with Max and Carrasco a lot in GPPs, especially on FanDuel, you can go with Minnesota's top 4 in their lineup is very cheap. Like I think the total tag here is 11,500 for their top 4 hitters.
So you'd say your top, helping our viewers here kind of fill out their lineup, at least for cash purposes, you're going to be having on DraftKings a little combination of Max and Robbie Ray with a little Minnesota stack and, filling in the 3 or 4 other spots with, TBD, maybe the Indians, bottom of the order guys, something like that.
Yep, definitely. For cash games, definitely looking at those value guys. Someone asked me in chat today, kind of how do you go about a build when you've got an elite price pitcher that you want to go with, like say Matt Scherzer. And that's something I'll do is I'll look at teams that are projected for a lot of runs in the top 5 implied runs in the night, and I'll try and grab two value bats from them and just kind of fade the expensive guys. You can't really go with Jose Ramirez at 6,000 on DK, 5,500 on FanDuel and put them in your cash lineup. If you're using Max Scherzer, you're looking for min price guys throughout. So I'll look at like a Melky Cabrera, Yandy Diaz, who's hitting cleanup tonight, even a Greg Allen hitting 9th on these nights when you're playing Max, and then go to the more of the cheaper teams like the Minnesotas and the Kansas Cities and try and grab 1 or 2 from there as well. And then I just try and make sure to get 2 bats in that, on FanDuel at least, $3,000 to $3,500 range. Pretty big bats with upside with those value guys as well.
Nice. I think that was a good explanation. Okay, are there any in your GPP lineups where you're fading Max? What are you doing? Are you building around Cleveland's expensive guys, or is there a different offense you're targeting?
Yeah, definitely. Like in my lineups where I'm going to jump down to Oh, where is it? I just got to bring up my pitcher sheet here for a second. Cole Hamels. Those ones that I'm building around Cole Hamels, and even you've got me kind of convinced a little bit in doing a few Lance Lynn lineups.
Yeah, Lance.
With those two guys, just being how cheap they are on both sites, even pairing them together, definitely Cleveland's at the top of my list, 100%. Yeah, I think you can jump in the top of their lineup for sure, especially with Yandy Diaz being cheaper, hitting cleanup in that lineup with Edwin out. So definitely that's the way I'm going.
So if you had two contrasting lineups tonight, one of which being cashy and one of which being GPP-ish, it's safe to say, to sum it up for everybody here, that, like we just said, you'd have a little bit of a Robbie Ray and a Scherzer Carrasco, one of those two. Robbie Ray, Cole, Scherzer Carrasco, something like that. Two of those four mixing and matching. With a little bit of a Kansas City, Minnesota stack, maybe with some cheap guys on Cleveland as well, and then more GPP-ish, you're focusing on Lance Lynn, Cole Hamels type combination of pitchers, with more of a focus on the Cleveland Big Bats mixed in with a little Minnesota as well.
That is 100% correct, my friend.
Cool. Well, just to kind of break through the language barrier to any of our newer viewers. Cool. And I think one of the only guys you didn't mention value that I'm a big fan of tonight is Yoan Moncada. He destroys Junis in their brief history of facing each other. And I know many of my more intelligent friends would say, and they're right, that the sample size is very small, but in my opinion, even when you've only faced a guy 5 times and you've hit 2 home runs off of him, on top of 2 other hits as well, you're excited to see him when you pull up in the batter's box.
You may see the ball well coming off, on his delivery.
Yeah, exactly. There's something up there. Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm not saying it's a lock or anything, but 3,700, I like Moncada. Junis, before he got injured, was giving up a ton of home runs. And it's if you're gonna have a lot of Kansas City or maybe a Kansas City stack with Scherzer, I always kind of like to run it back with maybe one person on the other offense if possible, just so a high scoring game really potentially benefits me. Maximizes our upside there. Merrifield, I kind of take back what I was saying earlier about no value on KC. I was, Merrifield's good, not great, but whatever. Moving on. One last thing I'll say is Angels, Texas. You didn't really mention. Are you fading that game or?
Yeah, I guess that's one that I really haven't mentioned. I only listed 4 on my sheet tonight for my top stacks. I'm going to get into the other one here in a second, but I mean that game's at 11 over under. Both teams are like 5.5 runs, so it's almost like a pick 'em, and both teams are expected to score. It could be another shootout, kind of like we seen last night. And Despain, or however you pronounce it, and Hutchison, they're just not that good. So I think there's definitely value.
They're not going to make it out of like the 3rd inning, either of them.
No, exactly. And looking at both lineups, I'm looking at FanDuel pricing here. Looking at the top 4 for Texas, they're all under 3,500. Mazara is still 2,500. Something to do with FanDuel when guys come off the DL. They take like 3-4 games before they're actually back up. Like he should be like a $3,500 player, and he's $2,500 hitting cleanup. So definitely going to be on him. I think he makes a good cash play tonight. David Fletcher's only 2,600 on FanDuel on FanDuel over on the Angels side of things, and Cole Calhoun still in that mid 3K range. He's a lot more on DraftKings, but leading off, he has just been absolutely crushing it right now. So definitely looking at both sides of that game too. Probably just if I can get enough lineups in before lock, I'm probably going to be jumping on Texas a little bit more than LA, but definitely going to try and get pieces of both. And then the other one I didn't mention as well is the Cincinnati, the Reds going up against Casey Kelly. He's had limited experience in the majors. He's back and forth for like the last 4 or 5 years. He's got a career 5.93 ERA, 4.77 xFIP to back up that horrible ERA, and he's never struck out more than like 5.5 batters per 9. So with Votto out, Billy Hamilton, they switched things around. Billy Hamilton's back up from the 9-hole, hitting leadoff. He's only 2,300 on FanDuel, so I think he makes value. I think you could even consider going Hamilton Peraza on FanDuel. For even in cash games to pair those two together, and then stacking, they're actually cheaper than stacking the top 4 in Minnesota, and you get Scooter Gennett and Eugenio Suarez, who both have a ton of power against a pretty crappy pitcher in a good hitter's park.
So are you going back to the well of Minnesota if you have to pick one, or would you go on Cincinnati?
You kind of quiet there.
Can you hear hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, are you going back to the well from Minnesota's hot bats last night, or are you going to focus a little bit more on catching lightning with Cincinnati tonight under the radar?
GPPs, I'm really going to try and get some Cincinnati stacks, probably 2 or 3 with Scherzer and Carrasco, and just kind of mix him in. And then I think Minnesota is going to be the other one. For my Carrasco and Scherzer lineups, it's going to be Minnesota and Cincinnati for the most part. And then when I start going other pitchers again, I'm going to go do the Texas and the Cincinnati. Casey, I'm probably going to have a little bit less exposure just because James Shields can be good at times. And, I mean, they don't really have a ton of power in their lineup. Salvador Perez is probably their top power guy. Merrifield's been good. If he wasn't hitting leadoff, I wouldn't pay that price for him. If he was back down, in that 5-hole, I wouldn't pay that price. So definitely Cincinnati, Minnesota on my max Scherzer and Carrasco builds. And then when I'm going down into that Hamels Lynn range, I'm looking at Texas and I'm looking at Cleveland for the most part.
I like it. I think that summarizes it very nicely, and I agree completely. I don't think there's any offenses that I want to mention that you didn't. Yeah, I don't want to be too reaching here. I like that. So, do you have any questions, or are there any or should we move on to weather and wrap this up?
I'm not seeing any questions, but yeah, I want to touch on a couple weather things. There might be Pittsburgh looks like a bit of a concern, probably the biggest concern. Like there's probably 7 games. I was looking at Ross Weather Report earlier. There's like 7 games with yellow or yellow-orange. He classifies them, which are kind of in that risky range. Washington was one of them. It's probably like second or third in my concern. But as of right now, I'm not worrying about it for cash games. There might be a delay chance. It looks like maybe 20, 30 minutes, even an hour into the game. But that could definitely blow by, it sounds like. So definitely not too worried about that one. But nothing looks like there's going to be any postpones tonight, maybe just a couple delays here and there. But I'm going to keep an eye on it, and if anything big comes up, I will definitely be posting it in the Slack chat and retweeting it on Twitter. So stay tuned for that.
Beautiful. And on that note, happy Friday, everybody. We hope the show helps. We're always open to feedback and comments to make it better. And check out RotoPros.com. We have an exciting relaunch 2-week special for free right now, so join in and see what we're all about.
Oh, just hold on 2 seconds. We got a late question here. Who are your top 3 4-starting pitchers? So we kind of went over this a little bit. We both like Max and Carrasco. And then when it comes to cheap, we're looking at Robbie Ray as like an SP2 on DraftKings. Yeah. Josh liked in GPPs kind of pivoting to Lucchesi. Or Lucchesi, however you say it, Lucchesi. Yeah. That sounds bad, but definitely looking at him. And then I was looking at Cole in the mid-range. We were both kind of looking at Cole Hamels. I was more on the Cole Hamels side. Josh was more on the Lance Lynn side. They've both been great since being traded to their new teams. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That's all the questions. If you have any other questions, make sure to jump into that Slack chat. We'll be there till lock.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Chris. Said it perfectly. Great job.
Cheers, and have a great weekend.
You too, bud. Have a great weekend, guys. Let's win tonight.
Later.